In my previous life, despite my family's opposition, I broke off my engagement with Ethan and was determined to be with Julian. 6 years later, he achieved success and fame by relying on the power and influence of my family, the EvaS. Then, he turned around and married his childhood sweetheart. He even said in front of the media, from beginning to end, "I have never loved Miss Eva." It was all Eva's wishful thinking. His childhood sweetheart, arm in arm with him, smiled brightly and said, "Over the years, Julian and I have gone through a lot of hardships." Even though Miss Eva tried to steal Julian away with her family background, we never gave up on each other. They held a grand wedding, but I was imprisoned by him until I died. After being reborn, I awakened my consciousness. This time, I'll make sure that these two scoundrels are stuck with each other. Where are you? On the other end of the phone, Julian's voice came through. We had been in a relationship for 3 years. Julian kept telling me that his mother didn't like my demeanor as a wealthy young lady. In order to please his mother, I started to give up wearing high-end brands. I tried to adopt a down-to-earth style, but his family was living a luxurious life with my money, acting like a wealthy family. Julian said, "I like girls who are clean and pure, not those who wear heavy makeup." So, I started going out with no makeup every day. However, his childhood sweetheart always had delicate makeup on and was always around us. Every time we went out on the street, people would say that they were a perfect match, a handsome man and a beautiful woman. When I was angry about this, Julian would say, "I like you the way you are. Don't care what others say." I believed him without a doubt. I started to be even more slovenly. "What's the matter?" I replied to Julian in a cold tone. "What do you think the matter is?" Julian started to get irritable. "Eva, have you forgotten that it's my mother's birthday today at the Shangshire Hotel? All my relatives are here. I give you 20 minutes to get here, or we're breaking up." "Julian is awesome," came the flattery of a man from the phone. I felt nauseous and hung up the phone impatiently. This time, it's impossible for me to obey you blindly again. At the birthday party of Julian's mother in my previous life, I went there with no makeup and was completely overshadowed by Olivia, who was dressed up beautifully. Everyone present was gossiping. Is this supposed to be a wealthy young lady? I think she's not as good-looking as Olivia. No wonder she's throwing herself at Julian. Since they wanted to see me make a fool of myself, I decided to play along to the end. Half an hour later, I showed up in a red evening dress with delicate makeup. I pushed the door open and flipped my long black curly hair. Olivia was wearing a pure white spaghetti strap dress. Her light makeup made her look like a white lotus flower, but in front of the gorgeous red rose that I was, she seemed a bit inferior. When she saw me, the smile on Olivia's face froze. Although she didn't say anything, she looked at Julian with just one look. From her expression, Julian understood what she meant. "What's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you that I don't like women who wear heavy makeup?" Julian pulled me aside and whispered unhappily. I pretended to be surprised and said, "Isn't it your mother's birthday today? If I don't dress up, do you want me to come here looking slovenly? Don't you think it's embarrassing?" Julian was at a loss for words. After a moment, he warned, "Just this once. It won't be allowed again." I didn't respond to him. Instead, I started to look Julian up and down. He was wearing a high-end brand suit today and a Rolex Submariner with a green ceramic bezel on his wrist. He looked like a successful man, with no trace of the poor appearance he had when we first met. I still remember the first time I met Julian on the university campus. His dress was out of place with the fashionable city. It was raining that day, and I didn't have an umbrella. I ran toward the classroom with a bag over my head. He passed by me and held an umbrella over me, with more than half of his body exposed to the rain. Later, when I went to return the umbrella to him, I found out that he had caught a cold from getting wet in the rain. Because I felt guilty, I took care of him. After interacting with each other for a while, I fell for him. I thought he was the good fortune bestowed upon me by heaven, but I didn't expect that it was all a plan between him and Olivia. They wanted to establish themselves in Nanchang, and they needed a stepping stone. I, being rich but naive, became their target. Just like that, I fell into the trap they had set. When we first started dating, Julian was obedient to me. He picked me up and dropped me off at school every day and brought me breakfast. He did it without fail, rain or shine. He even protected me tightly in his arms during a car accident. At that moment, my love for him reached its peak. Later, I found out that the car accident was also arranged by him, just to make me feel that I couldn't live without him. After the car accident, I introduced him to my parents. No matter how much my parents opposed, I was determined to be with Julian. I firmly broke off my engagement with Ethan. My father was so angry that he almost had a heart attack. In the end, under my threat of suicide, they had to agree to my relationship with Julian. After the engagement, I even threatened to commit suicide several times to get Julian into the company, until finally, he took control of the power of the Eva family. He married his childhood sweetheart. That's when I finally woke up, but it was all too late. They imprisoned me. My father died of a heart attack from the shock. My mother, in despair, chose to jump from a building to end her life. In this life, I will make Julian's entire family pay for what they did. Happy birthday, Mrs. Chin. Please accept this small gift, I said, walking over to Julian's mother and handing her the prepared gift. In my previous life, I had given her a flawless emerald bracelet because a month before her birthday, she had casually mentioned to me that she was interested in jade and emeralds. I had gone to great lengths to find that perfect bracelet worth over $1 million. This time, my gift was just a freebie that came with a handbag purchase, wrapped in a pretty gift box. Good things would be wasted on them anyway. Might as well just give them something random. Put it over there, Julian's mother said. Her eyes revealed her eagerness to open my gift, as if she couldn't wait, but she had to keep up appearances, always trying to act like a wealthy socialite. If it weren't for all their relatives present, no one would believe she used to be a cleaning lady. Now, thanks to me, her entire family didn't have to work anymore. I placed the gift to the side and quickly glanced at the dishes on the table. Nothing was spared. Ginseng, shark fin, abalone, all the expensive delicacies were present. This meal alone must have cost tens of thousands. They were certainly generous spending my money. For just a small birthday celebration, they had invited 8 tables of guests. That's hundreds of thousands gone in one go. Well, I wanted to see how they would pay the bill later. When Julian's relatives saw me, they couldn't help but compliment Mrs. Chin, your future daughter-in-law is not only rich. Julian's mother put on airs. Nothing's set in stone yet. Whether she can marry into our family is another matter entirely. Eva, that necklace looks nice. Take it off and let me try it on, Lily, Julian's sister, demanded like a robber. Every time we met, she would walk away with something of mine. Since I started dating Julian, I stopped using all my luxury items because Julian didn't like me being too flashy. Most of my designer things ended up with Lily. She didn't even bother to ask. Over the years, I couldn't even count how many things she had taken from me. This is a limited edition. It's very expensive, and I can't give it to you. I refused Lily for the first time, which made her lose face. You already messed up my relationship with Ethan. This necklace should be your compensation. Lily was shameless. Seeing that I wouldn't give it to her, she tried to snatch it forcefully. Fortunately, I knew her well and stepped aside. Lily threatened, "It's just a necklace. If you can't even part with that, do you still want my brother to marry you?" She knew how much I cared about Julian. But I had been reborn and was aware of what would happen next. How could I still care? Marry me? I didn't want to die again. I did what you asked, but you're ugly and he rejected you. There's nothing I can do about that. Who are you calling ugly? Lily's face flushed with anger. Mom, brother, look at this woman. She's insulting me. Eva, you've gone too far. How could you say such things to Lily? Olivia immediately acted like a sweet peacemaker, putting her arm around Lily's shoulders to comfort her. Lily, don't be upset. You're just not good at styling yourself, that's all. Julian's mother stood up abruptly, pointing at my nose and shouting, "Who do you think you are to insult my daughter? Look at you with all that makeup, looking like some seductress. Do you really think my son likes you? I will never agree to let you into our family." Julian slammed the table and yelled, "Eva, apologize to my sister right now. Perhaps then I might forgive you." Why should I apologize? Did I say anything wrong? I looked up and caught Olivia's malicious smile. She was waiting for the show, waiting for me to beg Julian for forgiveness, waiting for me to lose face in front of all these people. She even had her phone out, wanting to record my apology. Julian said self-righteously, "My sister asked you to help her pursue Ethan. It was such a small favor, and you couldn't even do that properly. What's wrong with giving her your necklace as compensation? Ethan was once my fiancé. Our parents were close friends, so they arranged our engagement since childhood. Although it had elements of a business marriage, Ethan truly loved me. Before meeting Julian, I always thought Ethan was a perfect match for me. And I was right, he was indeed perfect. Unfortunately, I was later deceived by Julian and came to believe that Ethan only wanted to be with me to take over my family's business. I was angry and resentful toward him. Even knowing that he didn't like Lily, I still forcefully introduced her to him. She's just a toad wanting to eat swan meat. Now she can't have him and blames me. As soon as I said this, everyone in the Chin family exploded with anger. Who are you calling a toad? Lily was so furious she lunged at me with her claws out. I caught her by the wrist and pushed her back forcefully. She lost her balance and fell on her backside. You bitch! Lily cursed from her humiliating position on the floor. Eva, how could you treat Lily this way? She's your future sister-in-law. Just apologize to her, and we can put this behind us, Olivia said, pretending to be kind as she approached me. I dodged her like she was the plague. Olivia's face turned awkward. Julian's mother pointed at me viciously and said, "Let me tell you something. If you dare humiliate my daughter like this, you can forget about entering our family." Eva, did you hear that? Apologize to my sister now, and I might still forgive you. Otherwise, we're breaking up, Julian said. This was his favorite line. In my previous life, I feared these words the most. Whenever Julian mentioned breaking up, I would immediately back down. He controlled me with just those 2 words. Then let's break up. Living a second life, how could I still care? I flipped my hair and turned around with style, walking away. Being with him now, even for a second, made me sick. If I stayed another minute, I was afraid I might throw up. Eva, you'd better not regret this. Don't come crying back to me. Julian's furious voice came from behind. I ignored him and slammed the door on my way out. As soon as I got in the car, I received a call from my father. Eva, Ethan is leaving the country and never coming back. Are you satisfied now? In my previous life, my father called me at this same moment. Not only did I not care, I even mocked him, saying I have nothing to do with him. He doesn't need to tell me if he's leaving. Ethan's departure was also because of me. Not long ago, to prove my loyalty to Julian, I had schemed to trap Ethan and Lily in a compromising situation. Ethan was smart. He saw through my plot. He became completely disillusioned with me and left the country for many years. He only returned after my death. When he learned about what happened to me, he was determined to avenge me. He deliberately got close to Lily to obtain evidence of Julian's plot to steal my family's business and take my life. Unfortunately, Julian discovered his plan. Julian killed him to silence him, tampering with his car to cause a fatal accident. This time around, I wanted to save not only my family, but also Ethan. I'm coming over now. Keep him there. Don't let him leave, I said, hanging up the phone. While urging the driver to go faster, I called the bank. I canceled Julian's supplementary card. I wanted to see how he would pay the bill without my money. By the time I arrived at the Jiang family house, the servants were loading Ethan's luggage into the car. My parents were still trying to persuade him, but he frowned with a determined expression. I parked my car nearby. When I walked toward him, he looked at me with confusion and anger. I knew exactly why he was angry. I had drugged him, trying to force him into a compromising situation with Lily. He hadn't told anyone about this incident. Neither my parents nor his parents knew. I thought that if Ethan's parents ever found out, they would probably never forgive me. Can we talk? I asked. Ethan's face was cold. What else is there to talk about between us? Just 10 minutes. After we talk, if you still want to leave, I won't stop you. Seeing the sincerity in my eyes, Ethan softened. He was always like this with me, unable to refuse. I followed him to his bedroom. "Speak," he said. I got straight to the point. "Let's get married." In my previous life, he loved me enough to die for me. This time, I would love him with the same intensity. "What did you say?" Ethan's brow furrowed with anger. He must have thought I was mocking him. But I understood. After all the humiliation I had put him through, now I was asking him to marry me. Anyone would be suspicious. "You heard me correctly. I'm absolutely serious. Let's get married, go register right now." Ethan grabbed my shoulders. "Eva, what exactly are you trying to do? Do you need to crush my pride under your feet to be satisfied?" "Ethan, I know I've done things in the past that make it hard for you to trust me." I didn't know how to express my sincerity. Then, in the midst of his fury, I impulsively kissed him. Ethan's eyes widened in shock. A few seconds later, he pushed me away. "Eva, do you have to humiliate me like this?" His reddened eyes stared at me, glistening with unshed tears. Seeing him like this broke my heart. I wanted to slap myself. How could I have been so cruel to someone who loved me so much, hurting him this deeply? I broke up with Julian. I had a very long dream. I told him about my previous life, describing it as a dream. He was stunned for a moment. "You broke up with him because of this dream? But I'm sure a few sweet words from him and you'll run right back into his arms." In the past, my love had been too humble. I was willing to die for Julian. Everyone, including Ethan, was convinced I couldn't leave Julian. Otherwise, Ethan wouldn't have given up on me so completely. I don't love him anymore. Please believe me. Just as Ethan was starting to soften, Julian called. When Ethan saw Julian's name on the screen, his expression turned cold again. I answered the call in front of him, putting it on speaker. "Eva, what do you mean by canceling my card?" Julian demanded. "We've already broken up. You're not still planning to spend my money, are you?" "Eva, are you sure you want to do this?" Julian took a deep breath. "If you come back now and pay the bill, I can let this go. Otherwise, don't expect me to forgive you." "Then don't forgive me." I hung up the phone and, right in front of Ethan, blocked Julian's number. "Do you believe me now? Are you sure about getting married?" Ethan's expression relaxed. "Let's go." I grabbed his hand and hurried downstairs. Downstairs, both sets of parents looked confused when they saw me pulling Ethan along. Had these two made up? "Give me my household registration book." Ever since I started dating Julian, my mother had been afraid I might impulsively marry him, so she'd been keeping my household registration book on her at all times. "What are you planning to do?" My mother backed away cautiously. "I'm getting married to Ethan." I held Ethan's hand tightly and raised it slightly. "What?" Both families went from initial disbelief to tears of joy. My mother even bowed repeatedly, saying, "Thank heaven for letting my daughter come to her senses." Outside the marriage registration office, Ethan stopped and looked at me. "Are you sure about this? Once we're married, you'll be stuck with me till death do us part." "Let's hurry up," I said cheerfully, pulling him inside. After getting our marriage certificate, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. "Eva, I'm giving you half an hour to get over here, or I truly won't forgive you." It was Julian's anxious voice on the other end. He must have been unable to pay the bill and was starting to panic. Living off others while acting entitled, I wasn't going to indulge him anymore. I didn't even bother responding and hung up. He called several more times from different numbers, but I rejected and blocked them all. For the next month, Ethan and I went on our honeymoon. Everywhere we went, we took photos and posted them on social media with the caption, "My love came riding on a bamboo horse, playing by my bed with green plums in hand." Living together in the same neighborhood, two innocent hearts without suspicion. Our social media exploded with reactions. Our mutual friend Sophie commented below, "Congratulations, lovebirds. May you grow old together and have beautiful children soon." Later, Sophie and I chatted privately for quite a while. From her, I learned many amusing stories about Julian. On the day of the birthday party, he really had no money to pay the bill and had to borrow from relatives and friends who were there. When they heard he needed to borrow money, everyone quickly wiped their mouths and slipped away. In the end, Only Julian's family and his childhood sweetheart Olivia remained. They had to scrape together whatever they could, selling all the valuable gifts I had given them. Since they were selling in a hurry, the buyer deliberately lowered the price, resulting in items worth over $1 million selling for just a few $100,000, barely enough to cover the bill. Actually, I had sent the buyer. I knew when they couldn't pay, they would definitely sell the things I'd given them. So I had someone deliberately push the price down low, just to make them destitute and penniless. After everything was settled and they returned home, they were driven out by the landlord. The apartment they lived in had always been mine, and the first thing I did after being reborn was to secretly sell it. I did this specifically for today, to have them evicted. When they looked at the property that had already changed ownership and tried to make trouble, no one indulged them. The new owner simply called the police, who took them all away. After the family was released from the police station, they all cursed me. Julian went to find me at school, only to discover I had taken a leave of absence. The project he was working on with several classmates had also been rejected by the school. In my previous life, I had been the one investing money for the school to approve their project. This time, I refused to invest, and the school directly rejected him. Julian could only frantically try to contact me, but I had changed my number, so he couldn't reach me at all. Without me, he quickly returned to his previous impoverished days. But it's easy to go from frugal to luxurious, while going from luxurious to frugal is much harder. Having grown accustomed to spending money like water, his family found it difficult to readjust to their former hard life. The days of splitting every penny 8 ways quickly led to conflicts as they began to blame each other. It's all your fault. You had to show off, and now look, Eva doesn't want you anymore. Lily taunted him with various cold remarks. Julian was already angry, and he slapped her hard across the face, shouting, "You dare blame me? If you hadn't wanted her necklace, how could I have fallen out with her? You actually hit me." Lily held her face, furious. "What right do you have to hit me? You couldn't even handle being a kept man properly. Did you really think that rich girl was stupid enough to let you manipulate her? Now you can't live off her anymore. Let's see what you'll do next." Julian hated it most when people said he was a kept man. Now being humiliated by his own sister without mercy, his face alternated between red and pale. "How dare you say that again?" "I will say it, kept man." Lily had always been spoiled by her mother and wasn't afraid of Julian. "I'll kill you." Julian's raised hand was stopped by his mother. Mrs. Chen pulled Lily close, looking at her swollen face. Although she felt bad for her, she still tried to pacify Julian. "What's the use of hitting your sister? Will that bring Eva back? The most important thing now is to think about how to win Eva back. The school said she took a leave of absence. I can't even get into her house. How am I supposed to find her?" Julian sat down, looking dejected. He had tried everything these days, but couldn't contact me at all. Then go stake out her home. I don't believe she won't return home. Mrs. Chen's idea was simple, but it was still a plan. So in the following days, Julian spent every day watching near my house. Sophie lived in the same residential complex as we did, and every time she went in and out, she would see Julian waiting in the distance. She even secretly took photos of him and sent them to me. Unexpectedly, after not seeing him for many days, he had become quite haggard. His face was unshaven, making him look several years older. Even with his handsome features, he couldn't hide the dark circles under his eyes. "What are you looking at?" Ethan returned with the milk tea I loved and noticed Julian's photo on my screen. His brows immediately furrowed. I quickly wrapped my arms around his neck and said sweetly, "Sophie sent it to me. I wasn't looking for it. She wanted me to see Julian's miserable state." "Sorry, Sophie. But that's what best friends are for, to take the fall in crucial moments." Ethan tilted his chin up slightly. "So, are you happy or sad seeing him like this?" "Happy, of course." Afraid he might be jealous, I prepared to give him a kiss. But Ethan was too tall, and he wasn't cooperating. Every time I stood on my tiptoes, he would raise his chin higher. I glanced around, not caring about appearances anymore. I jumped up, straddled him, and successfully planted my kiss. Ethan was startled at first, his fake anger instantly vanishing. Afraid I might fall, he immediately held me tight. Do you believe me now? You're the only one in my heart, I said sincerely as I pulled away from his lips. I believe you, but... He flashed a mischievous smile and whispered in my ear, this isn't enough. Let's continue back at the hotel. My face instantly flushed red with embarrassment as I climbed down from him. After our honeymoon, we had just returned to South City when our car was about to enter the residential complex, and someone suddenly jumped out, blocking our way. The driver reacted quickly with a sudden brake, causing my head to hit the back of the front passenger seat. Fortunately, the impact wasn't strong. Ethan hurried to check on me. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine, I shook my head. Seeing the concern all over his face warmed my heart. Eva. The car window was being pounded loudly. I reluctantly lowered the window to see Julian with his unshaven face. He was wearing a white shirt with a stain on the chest. He probably hadn't changed for days. What are you doing here? I looked at him with annoyance. Finally seeing me, he appeared excited. Eva, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I promise I'll treat you better in the future. Taking care of her is my duty now. It's no longer your turn, Ethan said coldly, giving Julian a contemptuous glance. Only then did Julian notice Ethan in the car. He demanded, why is he with you? Didn't you promise me you'd break off your engagement with him? Who do you think you are? I don't need your permission to be with anyone. Besides, we've already broken up. You have no right to question who I'm with. When Julian tried to reach through the window to grab my hand, I mercilessly avoided it. Eva, I was wrong. Please forgive me. That day I was just speaking out of anger. It didn't mean anything. I mocked him. Didn't you say a real man stands by his word? No, I'm not a real man. As long as you forgive me, I'll do anything. The Julian now had none of the arrogance he had when I loved him. Some people are just despicable. When you love them, they take advantage of your love and trample all over your sincerity. Now that I no longer loved him, he was groveling like a dog. Although I knew he had no genuine feelings, seeing him act like a dog made me feel incredibly satisfied. In my previous life, I had also begged him like this. I begged him to spare my family. But he said, Eva, do you know how much I hated pretending all these years by your side? Why should someone like you have everything from birth? While it was so hard for me to establish myself in the city, I refused to accept this. I must become someone at the top. The Shin Group can only be mine. After he successfully took control of the Shin Group, he angered my father into a heart attack but refused to get him medical help, watching him die. I was imprisoned in the basement at that time. Although I didn't know about this, he would come to see me, bringing bad news each time. He only came 3 times in total. The first time was to tell me about my father's death from a heart attack. The second time was about my mother's suicide by jumping from a building. The third time was to announce his marriage to Olivia. This no longer mattered to me. I just wanted to kill him, to die together with him. But I had been starved for several days and had no strength left in my body. As soon as I lunged at him, he pushed me away violently. You think you can kill me? You're not worthy. He turned away ruthlessly. The back of my head hit the corner of the table and a sharp pain struck me. Bright red blood flowed out, soon soaking my entire back. And that's how I bled to death. If that's the case, tomorrow at school, read this aloud for an hour in front of everyone, and I'll forgive you. I had printed this apology letter during my honeymoon. When Sophie told me Julian was staking out my place, I had already planned everything to humiliate him. I not only wanted to humiliate him, but also make him lose the academic achievements he was so proud of. Julian took the letter and glanced through it briefly, his expression hesitant. Didn't you say you were willing to do anything? If you won't even do this, how can I forgive you? My face turned cold. If you're unwilling, forget it. Let's go. Wait. Julian frantically knocked on the car door several times. I'll do it. Good. See you at school tomorrow. I couldn't be bothered to talk to him any further and raised the window. As the window closed, I caught a glimpse of hatred flashing in Julian's eyes, though it lasted only for a moment. Let's go. As the car slowly started moving, Ethan took my hand, his passionate gaze fixed on me. You talked to him, so you'll have to be punished tonight. I felt my heart flutter. I really didn't know where this man got so much energy, constantly wearing me out. Looks like I wouldn't escape tonight either. The next day at school, I made a grand entrance driving my Ferrari. Before, Julian didn't like me being too flashy, so I had abandoned all these attention-grabbing things. Now I wanted to go back to being the proud, beautiful princess I once was. As soon as I walked into campus, I ran into Sophie. She looked me up and down. Our mission has finally returned. I flipped my hair and walked with style. I was blind for a while, but now I can see clearly. You've finally come to your senses. I always said that Julian was no good. Sophie had once had a fierce argument with me because of Julian. Later, seeing how devoted I was to him, she stopped bringing it up. Sophie came forward and linked her arm with mine. At this moment, many people had gathered on campus. Julian was reading the letter I had given him through a megaphone. He'd been reading for more than half an hour. I am nothing but a kept man. I spent Eva's money while still trying to PUN hurt her. My entire family isn't human. Eva fed us, gave us drinks, and we were ungrateful, humiliating, attacking, and deceiving her. We're not human. Eva, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Mocking laughter surrounded him. Facing so many people and so much ridicule, his face grew increasingly ugly. He wanted to walk away, but he couldn't. After trying so hard, he couldn't give up now. To establish himself in the city, to become someone at the top, he had to endure this humiliation. Finally, the hour was up. Julian turned off the megaphone and walked toward me. Eva, I've finished reading it. Please forgive me. Julian gripped the megaphone so tightly it seemed he wanted to crush it to pieces. I glanced at him and smirked disdainfully. His restraint now was only so he could crush me tomorrow. I knew this better than anyone, so I had to strike first and send him into the abyss. I forgive you. Really? Julian excitedly grabbed my hand and began rambling complaints. Eva, please unblock my card. You have no idea what kind of life I've been living lately. Julian had hit rock bottom now. He didn't care that there were still so many people around, nor did he care if others said he was living off a woman. After reading the apology letter for an hour, what face did he have left at school anyway? As long as he could return to a life of luxury, he could do anything, no matter how humiliating. As long as he could regain my trust, replacing me would just be a matter of time. When that time came, he would definitely make me pay back 100 or 1,000 times over. I disgustedly shook off his hand. I said I forgive you, but I never agreed to get back together with you. Julian's face froze. But yesterday, didn't you say that as long as I read the apology for an hour in front of the whole school? I interrupted him. My bright face lifted with a hint of mockery. I only said I would forgive you. I never said I would get back together with you after you finished reading. So you deliberately played me? Julian finally realized what was happening. His face turned extremely ugly. At this moment, rage consumed him. His entire body radiated murderous intent. But this was school, and I knew he wouldn't dare do anything to me. So what if I did? I said with a mocking smile. Julian pointed at me and snarled, Eva, just you wait. I won't let you get away with this. Sure enough, the next day, news about me appeared online. The headline read, Rich heiress steals love, plays with poor boy's feelings. Julian posted a heartbreaking accusation against me online, claiming that I had interfered in his childhood romance with Olivia. He said if he didn't agree to be with me, I would have people hurt Olivia. For Olivia's safety, he had to endure humiliation and choose to be with me. He claimed that just because he invited Olivia to his mother's birthday party, I flew into a rage and stormed out. He said I forced his family onto the streets and made him read an apology letter for an hour in front of the entire school. But I still wasn't satisfied and used my influence to pressure the school into canceling his research project. This immediately stirred up waves of outrage, especially in a society where resentment toward the wealthy runs deep. Keyboard warriors attacked me en masse. As for Olivia, she was a minor internet celebrity with over 100,000 followers on a certain platform. She posted a photo of herself in tears with the caption, "Not meant to be in this life." May we never encounter people with power and influence in the next life. Olivia's move earned her a lot of sympathy. Her followers increased dramatically. It also pushed me to the top of public opinion's hate list. I was torn apart online. But I didn't care. No matter how much they criticized me, I wouldn't lose a piece of flesh. On the contrary, I was quite happy. I even spent money to promote their posts. Within a day, this incident topped the trending lists on major websites. I continued going to school as if nothing had happened. What I didn't expect was how severe some people's hatred for the rich could be. They actually came to school. As soon as I arrived at the gate, someone threw rotten vegetables at me. Thankfully, Sophie protected me, and we ran away quickly. Later, relevant authorities came to investigate the cancellation of Julian's research project. After their investigation, they discovered that Julian's research project was indeed substandard. They published their findings online. But the comment section was filled with accusations that I had bribed them. Few people could discern right from wrong. As the heat continued to rise, it was time to strike back. In the hallway, Julian blocked my path. "Good dogs don't block the road. Get lost," I said with disgust, about to walk around him, when I heard Julian say in a low voice, "Eva, this is what happens when you offend me. If you kneel down and beg me now, perhaps I might forgive you." I covered my nose in disgust and said, "A dog's mouth really stinks." "You." Julian held back his impulse and viciously said, "We'll see. Sooner or later, you'll come back begging me." I couldn't be bothered with him and quickly walked away. As soon as I got home, I uploaded the pre-prepared audio recordings, all the expenses I had paid for Julian's family over the years, and our family chat records to the internet. On the day of Mrs. Chen's birthday party, I had secretly carried a voice recorder. The entire conversation that day was recorded. His family claimed they had been oppressed by me, but in the recordings, it was clear that they had been arrogant and demanding toward me. Anyone with eyes could see the truth. Moreover, the supplementary card statements showed that Julian's family spent hundreds of thousands each month. The comments immediately changed direction. Everyone turned to criticize Julian instead. Comment: "I've seen men living off women, but never seen someone doing it so shamelessly and acting entitled about it." Comment: "Look at me, little sister. My teeth are bad. I especially love to live off women." Comment: "My God. If this is coercion, then coerce me, please. Look at me, little sister. Look at me." Comment: "This family is so shameless, eating at her expense while acting righteous, even trying to hurt the young lady. It's so satisfying that she dumped him." Julian's family was completely exposed. Even the jobs that Mrs. Chen and Lily had just found were lost. Without work, the family couldn't even pay rent and were eventually evicted by their landlord. Now the prophecy had come true. They were truly homeless. The school expelled Julian for maliciously spreading rumors and bringing huge negative publicity to the school. With nowhere to go, he could only turn to Olivia for help. But Olivia was in trouble herself. Her manipulative words in the recordings had now backfired on her. Internet users called her a fake sweet girl and a White Lotus hypocrite. She had gained many followers initially, but now she was losing them dramatically. "Olivia, I only have you now." Julian grabbed Olivia's hand, completely missing the disgust in her eyes. "Julian, that woman treated you so badly, you can't let her off so easily. We have no money or power to fight her." Olivia had ill intentions, and although she was disgusted with the foolish Julian, she still pretended to be deeply devoted. "Don't you remember? Back then, I suggested you take intimate photos of her while she was asleep." "That's right." Julian suddenly realized. How could he have forgotten this? The thing a woman fears most is having her private photos leaked. I had anticipated this move and prepared a countermeasure. When Julian came to threaten me with the private photos, I showed no fear. 10 million for your intimate photos. It's a fair deal. Julian thought he had found my weakness and smiled arrogantly. "Give me your account number." So we exchanged money for the deletion of photos and videos. Just as Julian got the money and was about to leave, several people rushed in and restrained him. "Mr. Chin, you're suspected of blackmail and extortion. We need you to come with us to assist in the investigation." Julian stared at me with wide eyes. He never expected that I would set a trap for him. "Eva, you bitch. You set me up." Although restrained by the police, he still struggled fiercely, continuously cursing me. He knew this was his last chance. A sum of 10 million was enough to keep him in prison for a long time. After this, he would never have the chance to curse me to my face again. Don't slander me. I didn't do anything. I watched him being taken away, and the heavy stone in my heart finally dropped. The main culprit had been brought to justice. In the following days, I began preparing for my wedding. Ethan wanted to give me the best of everything in the world, and all wedding arrangements were based on my preferences. On our wedding day, the whole city was buzzing. Dozens of Rolls Royces, truly magnificent. When I walked down the aisle on my father's arm toward Ethan, everything felt too beautiful to be real. In my previous life, I was so foolish to push away such a wonderful man. Thank God for giving me another chance to win this man back. "Ethan, from today on, Eva is in your hands. You must take good care of her." My father's eyes glistened with tears. I knew these were tears of joy. I was finally marrying Ethan, whom they had watched grow up. I didn't feel any reluctance as I approached Ethan, smiling radiantly at him. Ethan was quite emotional, choking up as he said, "Eva, do you know? My lifelong dream has been to marry you. Today, I've finally achieved it." After the ceremony, we changed into reception attire and went from table to table toasting with guests. "EvaS, your life ends now." A roar echoed through the hall. Before I could react, I saw someone dressed as a waiter rushing toward me with a knife. Everyone turned to look in shock. My tight dress restricted my movement. I couldn't dodge in time. Just as I thought I was about to die, a strong arm pulled me away, and he himself was stabbed in the abdomen instead. "Ethan." Seeing the blood flowing from his abdomen, endless panic surged in my eyes. In my previous life, I had bled to death. I was afraid he would leave me the same way. No, this absolutely couldn't happen. "EvaS, you owe me my son. He was so talented, and you got him imprisoned. I'll kill you." Only then did I see clearly that this person was Julian's mother. She tried to rush at me again, but was stopped by the hotel security. I held Ethan, who had been stabbed in the abdomen, crying out, "Ethan, hold on. Don't leave me. I can't live without you." Ethan was quickly sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. Fortunately, he arrived in time. The knife had missed vital organs and didn't pose a life-threatening danger. When the doctor finished saying this, my hands, which had been trembling uncontrollably with fear, finally stopped. Those hands were stained with Ethan's blood. The striking red color was drowned in silent tears. When Ethan was wheeled back to the ward, I composed myself, went to him, and held his hand. "Ethan." Ethan was still weak, perhaps due to blood loss. His voice was so low that I had to bend down to hear what he was saying. I put my ear close to him. "Eva, I also had that dream of yours." I was shocked at first, then I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. The emotions I had suppressed for so long needed the release of tears. "Eva, I'm sorry. I promise I'll protect you well from now on. I won't allow anyone to hurt you again." He held my hand with all the strength he had at that moment. I knew that Ethan had also returned from his previous life. After Ethan recovered and was discharged from the hospital, I began to deal with the remaining people. They wanted to take my life, so I wouldn't be soft-hearted and let them off. I quickly contacted Lily's father. I knew he had divorced her mother early on and had now formed a new family. Her stepmother was a greedy woman. I just had to have someone persuade them a little. Before long, they brought people to take Lily away to marry her off. For 300,000 yuan, she was forcibly married to the village idiot. She tried to escape several times, but was caught each time. Eventually, that family simply broke her legs so she could never escape again. Not long after, Lily became pregnant. Next was Olivia, the mastermind who had incited Mrs. Chin to kill me. I naturally wouldn't let her off easily. Olivia had been a minor internet celebrity, but because of my counterattack, she suffered a backlash and could no longer survive in the influencer world. Now she planned to enter the web drama industry. She managed to get roles in several web dramas by accompanying big shots. I directly informed these big shots' wives, and soon Olivia was beaten publicly and even stripped naked. After several such humiliations and beatings, she developed psychological trauma. She would become afraid whenever she saw someone approaching her. Once, she was so frightened that she ran into traffic and was hit by a car flying several meters. Although she was rushed to the hospital and her life was saved, she was paralyzed, confined to a bed, unable to move. After dealing with everyone, I was completely relieved. The huge stone in my heart was finally, truly removed. In the days that followed, I just wanted to accompany my parents well, live a good life with Ethan, and nurture our newly arrived child. Yes, I was pregnant. When I told Ethan the news, he hugged me and spun me around several times. This time, our relationship was finally on the right track, moving forward toward happiness.